The vast darkness of space stretched endlessly, broken only by distant stars and the faint hum of the patrol ship Sentinel-9. Commander Ilara Voss sat in the bridge, her hands resting lightly on the console. Routine patrols were usually quiet, almost boring. Today, she thought, would be no different. Just another check along the remote outer rim sectors of human-controlled space. "Bridge, report," she said, her voice calm but sharp. Lieutenant Ryan Holt, young but alert, scanned the radar. "All sectors clear so far, Commander. Standard readings, nothing unusual." Ilara nodded, leaning back slightly. "Keep scanning. You know the drill. Even a quiet day could hide surprises." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. Sensors hummed softly, monitoring empty space, while navigation kept Sentinel-9 steady along its planned course. Yet, as Ryan's eyes flicked over the display, a small anomaly appeared, a tiny blip on the edge of the radar. "Commander," Ryan said, his voice cautious, "we've got something. It's drifting. No identification codes, no signals. Just a ship." Ilara's eyes narrowed. "A lost vessel, maybe. Can we identify the class?" Ryan shook his head. "Standard design. Human-made, I think, but it's odd. No communications, no crew response, just floating." Ilara stood, her military training kicking in. "Prepare a boarding team. I want a full scan before we approach. And alert engineering. No surprises." The ship hummed quietly as it adjusted course toward the drifting vessel. On board, the crew suited up in light armor, their faces set with determination. They had faced hostile aliens and meteor storms. But a quiet drifting ship in the outer rim always felt strange. Humans had a sense for anomalies, and this felt wrong. As Sentinel-9 drew closer, the ship came into view. It looked perfectly normal, almost mundane. A mid-sized patrol ship, clean lines, no visible damage. Its lights flickered faintly, and its hull reflected the distant starlight. To anyone looking from afar, it was just another lost vessel. But Ilara felt the unease settle in her stomach. "Boarding team, prepare to dock," she ordered. "Keep your eyes open, stay alert. This might be routine, or it might not." The docking clamps engaged with a soft click. Ryan and two other crew members, Sarah Kale and Dax Wren, moved carefully through the airlock, their footsteps echoing in the eerie silence of the abandoned ship. At first, the ship seemed normal. Consoles blinked with standard operational lights, chairs were in place, and corridors were clear. Supplies were stocked, and there were no signs of struggle. The crew found nothing that indicated a disaster. No fire, no damage, no bodies. Sarah frowned. "It's empty. Too empty. No logs on the comms, no distress beacon." Dax ran a scan over the central console. "Everything's functioning. Power levels normal, life support online, but no crew activity and no communication with any station. It's like they just vanished." Ilara's eyes narrowed. "Check the black box. That's where we'll find answers." They carefully retrieved the black box, a small armored cube attached to the control panel. It looked ordinary, but Ilara knew better. Black boxes never lied. They recorded everything, whether visible or hidden. As they moved back to Sentinel-9, a chill seemed to follow them through the corridors. None of them spoke, only the soft hum of their suits and the faint clatter of the black box being carried. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, silent witnesses to the strange find. Back on Sentinel-9, the team set up the black box for analysis. Ryan connected it to a secure terminal while Ilara observed. The first few recordings were mundane. Crew routines, maintenance logs, casual conversations, everything seemed normal. "Routine patrol," Ryan murmured. "Nothing unusual so far." But then the recordings shifted. Tiny gaps appeared in the timestamps. Crew members mentioned odd shadows, strange noises in the corridors, equipment acting strangely. At first it seemed like system errors, but patterns emerged. Alara frowned. Playback from 12 hours on the previous day. Slow it down. The screen showed the crew of the drifting ship walking through corridors, turning corners, pausing as if sensing something unseen. A faint flicker appeared in the recording, a shadow that moved independently of anyone present. Sarah whispered, "That wasn't there in real time, is it?" Alara leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "No, that's something they didn't record in their logs. Whatever it was, it stayed hidden from normal sensors. But the black box caught it. Always does." Dax studied the energy readings. "Look at this. Small distortions in the ship's energy field, tiny pulses, almost like it's alive, or thinking." Ilara's heart raced. Humans had faced unknowns before, but this was different. Something intelligent, something careful, had been aboard that ship, and now it was gone, or waiting. "Commander," Ryan said cautiously, "this might be more than a lost ship. Could be a trap, or a warning." Ilara nodded. "Agreed. We need to be careful, but we also need answers. The black box might tell us everything if we can interpret it correctly." They spent hours analyzing every second of footage. The drifting ship's crew had experienced strange phenomena: doors opening by themselves, systems failing briefly, shadows moving where no one stood. They had tried to adapt, but the recordings hinted at fear, confusion, and ingenuity. Ilara noticed the small details humans often overlooked: the crew marking areas with warning signs, using heat lamps to check empty corridors, improvising defenses with basic tools. Even in fear, they had tried to survive. "It's remarkable," Ilara said quietly. "Even under stress, humans find ways to fight back. That's what we do. That's who we are." Rian looked at her, concern in his eyes. "But what was it? We can't see it. Sensors pick up nothing now. It's gone. Or hiding." Alara's jaw tightened. "Then we'll have to be smarter, observant, patient. Humans survive because we adapt, and we will adapt again." As the crew of Sentinel-9 prepared for the next phase of investigation, the stars outside seemed colder, emptier. But within the ship, determination burned brightly. They had discovered a mystery, and humans never left mysteries unsolved. The black box sat on the console, silent but full of secrets. And as Ilara looked at it, she knew one thing for certain. This was no ordinary ship. Something extraordinary had happened aboard it, and its story had not yet been fully told. Night fell over the outer rim sector, though in space, darkness never truly ended. And in that darkness, humans faced the unknown, ready to confront it with courage, intelligence, and resolve. The patrol that had begun as a routine mission had already changed. What started as a simple check had become a challenge, a puzzle left behind in metal and data, waiting for human minds to uncover its truth. Ilara leaned back, hands clasped behind her head. "We'll find the story. Whatever it is. That's what humans do." And somewhere in the distance, drifting silently through space, the normal-looking ship waited, its black box holding the secrets of fear, mystery, and human courage. The bridge of Sentinel-9 was quiet, lit only by the glow of monitors and the soft hum of the ship's systems. Commander Ilara Voss and her crew gathered around the central terminal, the black box from the drifting ship placed carefully before them. Ryan Holt's fingers moved over the console, bringing up the first playback files. "Starting from the beginning," he said. "Full logs, unedited." The screen flickered to life, showing the crew of the lost ship. At first, everything seemed ordinary. Cheerful conversations, routine maintenance, system checks. The crew greeted each other, laughed lightly, and went about their work as if nothing unusual were happening. Sarah Kyle leaned closer, studying the screen. "Looks like a normal ship, normal crew. Nothing out of place." Dax Wren frowned. Yeah, but didn't we already check that? Why is this even interesting? Ilara didn't answer immediately. She had seen enough anomalies in her years of service to know that normal appearances were often deceiving. "Keep watching," she said. "Look for what's missing." The logs continued. Small gaps began to appear in the timestamps. A crew member would step into a corridor and suddenly disappear from the recording, only to reappear moments later, looking startled. Doors would open on their own, and equipment would fail briefly, but the system never logged any errors. Ryan stopped the playback at one such moment. "Pause here. Look at this frame." He pointed at a shadow moving along the corridor wall. "No one's there. Sensors didn't pick it up, but it's moving." Sarah's eyes widened. "It's alive?" Ilara shook her head. "Not in the way we think. It's intelligent, observing, adapting. That's what makes it dangerous." "This isn't just a ship lost in space. It's been a battleground, invisible to the crew's sensors." Dax leaned back, arms crossed. "So it's an alien? Some kind of predator?" Ilara considered. "Perhaps, but not a mindless one. Whatever it was, it studied them, avoided detection, and learned from every action. That takes intelligence." The crew spent hours analyzing the black box, replaying events, and comparing them with sensor readings from their own ship. Slowly, patterns began to emerge. The first clue came from the ship's energy field. Tiny distortions, almost imperceptible, flickered in moments where the crew on the drifting ship experienced fear or confusion. Doors malfunctioned, lights flickered, and heat readings spiked. The black box captured it all. "Look at this," Ryan said, pointing to the holographic projection. "Every time the shadow moves, the energy fluctuates, almost like it reacts to life." Ilara studied it closely. "Yes, it's adaptive. It watches, learns, and responds. It's been testing them, manipulating their environment, and observing how humans react." Sarah shook her head. "They never stood a chance." Ilara's voice was firm. "No, but they did what humans always do. They tried. They adapted, improvised, and survived as long as they could. That's the point. That's what matters." The playback showed crew members placing temporary barriers, using heat lamps to detect movement, and marking sections of the ship they considered dangerous. They communicated carefully, sharing warnings and attempting to understand the presence stalking them. "They were smart," Dax said quietly. "They didn't panic. They used their brains to fight back." Ilara nodded. "Exactly. And that's why we're studying this. Humans don't just survive by chance. We survive by thinking, by inventing, and by working together. That's our strength." As the analysis continued, another pattern became clear. The entity, the shadow, appeared to have a goal. It didn't act randomly. It seemed to push the crew toward certain areas, perhaps testing their decisions, perhaps guiding them toward danger. Rian frowned. "Why? Why would it do that?" Ilara's eyes hardened. "Because it wants to learn. Whatever it is, it's curious. And curiosity can be dangerous when it encounters humans." The team discussed strategies not for themselves, but for understanding what the drifting ship's crew had done. Every small action mattered. The way they used light to reveal shadows, the way they improvised weapons from tools, even the way they marked areas with warning signs. Sarah pointed at the projection. "Look here. The crew is using short pulses of electromagnetic energy to try to detect the presence. They're improvising from the ship's systems." Dax whistled softly. "And it's working, sometimes. But it also makes it angrier, I think." Ilara leaned closer. "Exactly. That's the lesson. Humans adapt. Even when the odds are against us, we find a way. That's why we survive. That's why we explore. That's why we patrol these sectors, because we can face the unknown and learn from it." Hours passed. The crew of Sentinel-9 watched, analyzed, and debated every movement of the drifting ship's crew. Slowly, the invisible battle unfolded before them. The humans aboard that ship had been careful, clever, and courageous. Finally, Ryan spoke, his voice low. "Commander, if we ever encounter something like this, we'll need to be ready. They almost didn't survive. But we can. We have the knowledge, the experience, and we're aware." Ilara smiled slightly. "That's the key. Awareness. Humans notice patterns, think ahead, and work together. That's how we turn fear into action. That's how we survive the unknown." Sarah leaned back, her expression thoughtful. "It's strange. Watching this, it feels like we're learning from ghosts." Ilara nodded. "In a way, we are. These people faced what we haven't yet. Their courage and ingenuity are lessons for us. And now, we have the chance to apply them before we face the next unknown." Dax rubbed his chin. "So, we take their tactics, improve them, and be ready. We learn, and we survive. That's human nature." Ilara stood, her hands clasped behind her back. "Yes, that's why we patrol. That's why humans explore. Because no matter what we find in the dark, we adapt, we survive, and we grow stronger because of it." The black box continued to hum softly, a silent record of courage, fear, and cleverness. The crew of Sentinel-9 understood that the real story wasn't just the drifting ship, it was the human spirit that shone through, even in the face of something invisible, unknown, and deadly. As night fell over the outer rim sector, though in space, darkness was eternal, the patrol crew prepared for the next phase. They would use the lessons learned from the black box to guide their mission, to be smarter, sharper, and ready for anything the universe might throw at them. Ilara looked at her crew, pride and determination shining in her eyes. "We've learned from them. Now it's our turn. We'll face whatever comes. That's what humans do. We don't run from fear, we outthink it. We survive, and we protect. And no matter what, we never give up." Ryan smiled. So the normal ship wasn't normal after all. Its story, its lesson, is in this black box. We just have to listen. Sarah nodded. "And remember, humans are clever, humans are brave, humans survive." Ilara tapped the console gently. "Exactly. And now, we take that knowledge and we keep going. The universe doesn't wait for anyone, and neither do we. Patrols, missions, discoveries, they all matter. Every choice, every action, every lesson learned, it all counts." The black box sat silently, but the message was clear. The drifting ship had not only told a story of fear and mystery, it had shown the indomitable human spirit, the ability to adapt, survive, and thrive. And in that quiet, tense moment, the crew of Sentinel-9 understood something profound. Even in the emptiest, most dangerous reaches of space, humans were never truly alone. Their courage, their ingenuity, and their determination could light the darkness. And that was the real power humans carried into the unknown. Ilara looked out at the stars beyond the ship's hull, her mind already planning the next steps. "We'll follow this trail," she said softly. "We'll understand it, and we'll be ready." The black box had spoken, and humanity had listened. The quiet hum of Sentinel-9 filled the bridge as Commander Ilara Voss leaned over the holographic display. The black box had revealed strange things, but the more they studied it, the more the crew realized how little they truly understood. Lieutenant Ryan Holt manipulated the projection, turning the drifting ship's corridors into a glowing 3D map. "I've reconstructed the ship's interior from the black box data," he said. "We can see every corridor, every room, every small action taken by the crew." Sarah Kale stepped closer, her eyes scanning the hologram. "It's eerie, watching them move, knowing what happened. You can see how they react, where they pause, and..." The moments when they were aware something was following them. Alara nodded. Exactly. And that's what we need to understand. The entity didn't just attack. They observed, studied, and adapted to the crew's actions. If we understand its patterns, we can predict it. Dax Ren frowned. Patterns? It's invisible. We can't see it, we can't touch it. How do we predict something we can't perceive? Alara's eyes were firm. By studying what it leaves behind. Energy distortions, minor system failures, changes in environmental readings. It reacts to human activity. It's learning. And humans are clever. We can turn that against it. The crew spent hours watching the black box footage, carefully noting every anomaly. Doors opening without cause, lights flickering, shadows moving against walls. Each incident was subtle, but deliberate. The drifting ship's crew had attempted to fight back in their own ways, using heat lamps, electromagnetic pulses, and clever placement of barriers to detect the unseen presence. Look here, Ryan said, pointing to a corridor. Every time the shadow appears, the crew reacts with caution. They pause, they observe, they improvise. That's the key. They don't panic, they adapt. Alara's lips pressed together. Humans always adapt. That's our greatest strength. Even in fear, we can think, learn, and respond. That's what saved them as long as it did. And it's what will save us if we ever face this entity ourselves. Sarah frowned. It's almost like it's testing them, pushing them into certain areas, forcing decisions, learning what humans will do next. Alara's eyes narrowed. Yes, that's exactly it. Curiosity can be dangerous, but intelligence has limits, and humans can be unpredictable. That's our advantage. We don't just react, we improvise, we strategize, we outthink. Dax shook his head slowly. So, it's studying us now, even through the black box? Or is it gone? Alara considered. We don't know if it's still out there, but we can use what we've learned. We can understand its methods and prepare ourselves. That's the point. Humans survive by turning knowledge into action. Ryan adjusted the projection, showing a series of interactions in a specific corridor. See this sequence? The entity seems to avoid direct confrontation, almost like it's testing them. It learns from every movement, every attempt to trap it. But notice the flaw. Every time they use heat or EM pulses, it hesitates. It's reactive, not proactive. Alara nodded slowly. Good observation. That's what we'll use. It reacts to stimuli. It adapts, but it also leaves traces. If we can anticipate those reactions, we can control the engagement. Sarah's eyes lit up. We can set traps, like they did, but better. Use multiple sensors, predict movement, and create a controlled environment. Then we force it to reveal itself. Dax grinned. And that's why humans survive. We think ahead. We plan. We don't just wait for the unknown. We act, and we adapt. Alara smiled faintly. Exactly. That's what we're learning from them. The lost ship's crew. Their courage, their thinking, their ability to improvise under pressure is now our lesson. We honor them by applying it. Hours turned into shifts as the crew of Sentinel-9 pored over the data. Every subtle detail mattered. They began identifying patterns, areas where the entity appeared more frequently, times when the drifting crew made critical decisions, and moments where fear almost overtook rational thought. It's teaching us, Ryan said quietly, without ever intending to. Its mistakes, its reactions, they're all recorded. And we're using that knowledge. Alara's gaze was steady. Humans have always learned from experience, ours and that of others. That's why we explore, why we fight, why we survive. Every encounter, every challenge is a lesson, and every lesson strengthens us. Sarah moved closer to the hologram. The entity seems intelligent but predictable if we study it carefully. It reacts to movement, heat, and electromagnetic changes. It avoids direct danger. That's our window. We can prepare, we can control, we can win if necessary. Dax rubbed his chin thoughtfully. And we have the black box. It's like a blueprint for survival. They survived as long as they could because they used every tool, every resource, every idea they had. We can do better. We have their knowledge. Alara's voice was firm. We will do better. Humans always do. The unknown doesn't scare us. It challenges us, and challenges bring out the best in us. The crew worked through simulations, recreating possible scenarios where the entity could appear. They placed virtual sensors, ran energy pulses, and tested escape routes. The more they experimented, the more they realized that human ingenuity could counter even invisible threats. Ryan studied a sequence on the display. Here, the crew improvised a barrier to slow it down. It worked for a few minutes. That's all we need. Long enough to understand, long enough to act. Ilara nodded. Every advantage counts. Humans survive because we notice, adapt, and act faster than the unknown can anticipate. That's our power. Sarah smiled faintly. It's almost poetic. A ship drifting in space, seemingly normal, teaching us what it means to survive, to think, to act. Ilara allowed herself a small smile. Yes, that's why we patrol. That's why humans explore. Every unknown, every anomaly is a chance to prove our strength, to grow stronger, and to learn. The simulations continued late into the cycle, and the crew began to feel a quiet confidence. They were learning from shadows, from silence, from a story recorded in metal and light. They were learning how humans, curious, clever, and courageous, could face the unknown and survive. Finally, Ryan leaned back in his chair, exhaustion evident on his face. Commander, if this entity exists somewhere out there, we can handle it. We understand its patterns now, we know its weaknesses, and we've seen how humans respond under pressure. We're ready. Alara's gaze swept over the crew. Ready doesn't mean fearless. Ready means aware, prepared, and capable. Fear is natural, but courage is a choice. And humans always choose to act, to survive, and to protect others. Dax stood, stretching. Then let's be ready. If it's out there, we'll meet it. And if it tries to challenge us, it will find that humans are smarter than it expects. Sarah nodded. And that's the real story here. Not just the drifting ship or the entity, but what humans can do, how we adapt, how we survive, how we never give up. Ilara's voice was calm but firm. Exactly. And when we leave this sector, we carry that lesson with us. The universe is vast, full of unknowns, but humans have a way of facing it. Together, smart and brave. That's our strength. That's our story. As the black box hummed softly on the console, the crew of Sentinel-9 felt a sense of purpose. They were not just observers. They were learners, inheritors of courage, intelligence, and human ingenuity. They were preparing to turn knowledge into action, to face whatever lay ahead with determination. Outside, the stars continued to shine, indifferent and eternal. But inside the ship, humanity's light burned brightly, curious, brave, and unstoppable. And somewhere in the quiet reaches of space, the drifting ship waited, its secrets recorded in the black box, teaching humans lessons they would carry forward. Lessons of vigilance, courage, and cleverness, the essence of human survival. Ilara looked out the viewport at the endless stars. Whatever comes next, she said softly, we'll be ready. Humans always are. The patrol that had begun as routine was now a mission of preparation, learning, and human ingenuity. And though the unknown still waited in the darkness, the crew of Sentinel-9 knew one thing with certainty. Humans do not simply survive. They adapt, they learn, and they prevail. The quiet hum of Sentinel-9 had been replaced by a tense anticipation. Commander Ilara Voss stood at the center of the bridge, staring at the holographic projection of the drifting ship. Every corridor, every anomaly, every subtle energy distortion was mapped in glowing lines. The crew was ready to test what they had learned from the black box, the lessons of human courage, intelligence, and adaptation. "Today, we act," Ilara said, her voice steady but firm. "We don't wait. We use what we've learned. We turn knowledge into action. Ryan, status on the traps?" Ryan Holt's fingers flew over the controls. "All sensors online. Electromagnetic pulses calibrated. Heat decoys in position. The corridors are ready. We've set multiple layers of detection and containment fields. The entity will be able to move, but we'll know exactly where it is." Sarah Kale studied the simulation. "We've accounted for its reactions. It's adaptive, yes, but it hesitates when confronted with these stimuli. It learns, but humans can outthink it. That's our advantage." Dax Wren leaned against the console, a small grin on his face. "We're not just fighting blindly. We're teaching it that humans are smarter than it expects. That's what they couldn't do because they didn't have the advantage we have now, knowledge." Ilara nodded. "Exactly. We're cautious, but we're prepared. Remember, fear is natural. Courage is a choice. And today, we choose courage." The crew moved into position, carrying equipment and deploying sensors. Every action was deliberate, calculated. The corridors of Sentinel-9 became a network of detection and defense, a controlled arena for the unknown intelligence. Hours passed as the preparations continued. Then, as night, or the semblance of it, fell over the outer rim sector, the first anomalies appeared. Small energy distortions flickered across the sensors. Lights dimmed momentarily, shadows stretched unnaturally along the walls, and the soft hum of the ship's systems fluctuated. "It's here," Ryan said quietly, eyes glued to the display. "It's testing us already." Ilara's jaw tightened. "Then we give it a lesson in human ingenuity." The entity moved through the ship, careful, intelligent, testing every sensor, every decoy. It reacted to heat and electromagnetic pulses, hesitating when confronted with obstacles. But it also adapted, learning patterns, predicting movements. Sarah whispered, "It's clever, but not clever enough." Ilara's eyes gleamed. "Exactly. We anticipate, we adapt, and we act faster than it can predict." Dax initiated a small pulse in a corridor, creating a temporary energy disturbance. A flicker of movement appeared, a shadow, almost invisible, weaving around the sensors. "There!" Ryan shouted. "It's reacting! It's visible through the fluctuations! We have it!" Ilara gave the order. "Activate containment fields in sequence. Force it into the chamber. Everyone, stay sharp." The crew moved with precision, guiding the entity toward the containment area. The black box lessons had prepared them for this moment. Every action, every pause, every calculated move of the drifting ship's crew had been analyzed and improved upon. Humans were not just reacting, they were leading the encounter. The entity resisted, moving unpredictably, testing every human response. It darted through corridors, avoided traps, and tried to confuse the sensors. But the crew anticipated its moves, adapting faster than it could. Sarah's fingers danced across the controls. "It's learning, yes, but we're ahead now. We've predicted its hesitation points. It will fall into the containment grid." Dax nodded, a grin on his face. "And then we see if humans can truly survive the unknown and win." Ilara gave the final order. "Engage the containment sequence, now." A soft hum rose as the containment fields activated. Energy grids formed across the corridors, creating a network that limited the entity's movement. For a moment, the shadows flickered, paused, and hesitated. Then, with a sudden surge, it moved, fast, intelligent, trying to escape. Ryan shouted, "It's in! Containment holding!" The crew held their positions, monitoring energy levels and sensor feedback. The entity thrashed, testing the limits of the containment. But the human preparations, the careful study, and the ingenuity of the team kept it confined. Ilara stepped forward, her voice calm but commanding. "Now we observe, record everything. This is an opportunity to learn, to understand, and to prove that human intelligence can match even the unknown." The entity pulsed and shifted, trying to communicate, or perhaps simply test. Energy readings fluctuated wildly, but every movement was captured, every reaction recorded. The black box from the drifting ship had taught them vigilance, patience, and strategy, and now humans were turning fear into action. Sarah whispered, "It's almost like it understands. It knows it's trapped, but it's not giving up." Ilara smiled faintly. "Neither do we. That's the difference. Humans adapt, improvise, and persist. That's what the drifting ship crew couldn't fully accomplish. We can. And we will." Hours passed as they monitored the entity, learning from its reactions. The containment fields kept it confined, but the crew also took careful notes of its behavior, its hesitation, its adaptation, and its intelligence. Dax leaned back, exhaustion in his posture but determination in his eyes. "We're learning faster than it can adapt, and that's human ingenuity. That's why we survive." Ilara nodded. "Exactly. Humans survive because we think, because we observe, because we act. Fear is natural, but knowledge is power, and courage is the choice to use that power." Finally, the entity, after repeated tests and failed attempts to escape, paused. The energy readings stabilized. It had learned, adapted, but the humans had outmaneuvered it. Rian sighed, relief evident in his voice. "It's contained, stable. We've done it." Ilara looked at her crew, pride shining in her eyes. "Not just containment. We've learned. We've proven that human courage, intelligence, and teamwork can face the unknown and prevail. That's why humans survive. That's why we explore. That's why we patrol the stars." Sarah smiled softly. "And all of it started with a normal-looking ship drifting silently in space. Its black box told the story, taught the lessons, and now we've turned fear into action." Dax grinned. "Humans don't just survive. We learn, we adapt, and we triumph. Every time." Ilara allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. "Exactly. The unknown doesn't defeat us. We study it, understand it, and act. That's the human way. That's what the drifting ship has taught us. And that lesson will stay with us in every patrol, every mission, every encounter with the unknown." The entity remained in containment, a silent witness to human ingenuity and bravery. The stars outside continued to shine, vast and indifferent. But inside Sentinel-9, the light of human determination burned brighter than any distant sun. Ilara tapped the console lightly. "Prepare the data for transfer to headquarters. Every observation, every lesson, every adaptation, we document it all. Humanity doesn't just survive the unknown, we learn from it, and we grow stronger." Ryan nodded, already working on the logs. "All recorded, Commander. Every detail, every sequence, every energy pattern." Sarah added, "And the crew of the drifting ship, their efforts weren't wasted. They taught us courage and ingenuity. We honor them by applying what they discovered, by surviving and thriving." Ilara's eyes softened. "Yes, and that's the human story. Courage, intelligence, adaptation, and persistence. That's what keeps us alive in the vast darkness. That's what makes us human." Outside, the stars were silent, endless, and mysterious. But inside Sentinel-9, humanity's light shone brightly. Fear had been met with knowledge. Uncertainty had been met with strategy. And the unknown had been met with the greatest human strength, intelligence and courage combined. The patrol that had begun as a routine mission had become a testament to human ingenuity. The drifting ship's black box had told a story of fear, mystery, and survival. And the crew of Sentinel-9 had written the next chapter, one of preparation, confrontation, and triumph. Ilara looked out at the void, her voice quiet but firm. Whatever lies ahead, humans will face it. We don't run. We don't panic. We observe, we learn, we adapt, and we prevail. That's the human way. And in the silent corridors of the ship, the contained entity pulsed faintly, a reminder of the unknown. But humans were ready. They had learned, they had acted, and they had won. The stars outside seemed endless, but humans had proven once again that no matter how vast the darkness, courage and intelligence could light the way. The quiet after the confrontation was almost surreal. Sentinel-9 hummed steadily through the outer rim sector, its systems stable, its crew weary but alert. Commander Ilara Voss stood at the bridge viewport, watching the stars drift silently past. The entity, now contained, pulsed faintly in its energy field, a reminder of the dangers hidden in the darkness of space. Lieutenant Ryan Holt tapped the console, reviewing the containment data. All readings are stable. The entity isn't escaping, and our sensors are continuously monitoring it. Every movement, every energy fluctuation is recorded. Sarah Kyle crossed her arms, thoughtful. It's almost peaceful now. But that doesn't change what it is, a highly intelligent, adaptive presence. It could be dangerous if released. Ilara nodded. Exactly. And that's why we'll study it carefully. Knowledge is the key. The black box from the drifting ship taught us courage, observation, and strategy. Now we learn fully. From the entity itself. Dax Wren leaned back, exhaustion visible but a small grin on his face. We faced the unknown, and humans came out ahead. That's something worth remembering. Ilara's eyes softened. Yes, Dax. And that's the lesson. Humans survive because we think, we adapt, we act together. We turn fear into strategy. Courage isn't just facing danger, it's using intelligence to overcome it. The crew began a careful study of the entity. Energy pulses, movement patterns, and responses to stimuli were all recorded. Slowly, they began to understand its behavior. It was intelligent, curious, and adaptive, but it also had limits. Human ingenuity, persistence, and observation had revealed those limits. Ryan frowned, analyzing a data stream. It's like a puzzle. Every reaction teaches us something new. It's intelligent, yes, but it's reactive. It learns, but humans are faster. We can predict it, control its environment, and turn its curiosity into containment. Sarah smiled faintly. Just like the crew on the drifting ship tried to do. They fought bravely, improvised every tool, every method they could. They weren't perfect, but they survived long enough to teach us, and we've built on their lessons. Ilara's gaze swept over the crew. That's the human story. Even when faced with something we cannot see, we analyze, adapt, and overcome. Fear exists, but we choose courage. The unknown exists, but we choose knowledge. And when danger arises, humans act, together and intelligently. Dax leaned forward, resting his elbows on the console. It's remarkable. All this started because of a ship that looked normal, a routine patrol. And yet, its black box told a story of courage, of fear, and of human ingenuity under pressure. Now we carry that story forward. Ilara smiled. Exactly. Humans leave marks in every encounter, not just physically, but through learning, through action, through persistence. We take lessons from the unknown and grow stronger. That's how humanity survives, even in the vast emptiness of space. Hours passed as the crew documented every detail. The entity remained contained under careful observation. Every pulse, every reaction, every anomaly was recorded. The drifting ship's black box had prepared them for this, teaching them vigilance and strategy. Humans had turned knowledge into action, fear into determination, and uncertainty into triumph. Finally, Ryan exhaled deeply. "Commander, all observations are logged. Every detail, every lesson, every pattern. The black box story is complete. The entity's behavior is fully analyzed. We're ready to report to headquarters." Ilara nodded. "Good. And we'll recommend caution, of course, but we'll also report what humans are capable of, how we adapt, how we strategize, how we face the unknown and prevail. That's what this mission proves." Sarah looked out at the void, her expression reflective. "It's strange. The entity was dangerous, unknown, and invisible. Yet, it's taught us more than fear ever could. It's taught us patience, strategy, teamwork, and courage." Dax chuckled softly. "And that's why humans survive. We're clever, brave, and persistent. Even in the darkest, most unknown corners of space, we find ways to overcome challenges. That's our story." Ilara turned from the viewport, her eyes steady. "Yes. And we'll carry this lesson forward. The black box showed us courage under pressure, intelligence in action, and ingenuity in danger. We've applied it, and we've triumphed. That's the essence of human survival: adaptation, collaboration, and persistence." The crew spent the rest of the cycle preparing reports, stabilizing systems, and reviewing all the lessons learned. They discussed strategies for future encounters, building on the knowledge gained from both the drifting ship and the entity now contained aboard Sentinel-9. Ryan approached Ilara quietly. "Commander, the drifting ship's crew, what they did wasn't wasted. Their courage, their ingenuity, their struggle, it all contributed to this outcome. We owe them our respect, and we carry forward what they taught us." Ilara placed a hand on his shoulder. "Exactly, Ryan. Every human action matters, every choice counts. They faced the unknown, struggled, and survived long enough to leave a story. And we've built on it. That's human resilience in action." Sarah added, "It's inspiring to see what humans can do, even in fear, even when faced with the invisible and unknown. We adapt, we think, we act, and we survive." Ilara's voice was quiet but firm. "That's what humanity represents: courage, intelligence, ingenuity, and persistence. That's why we explore, why we patrol, why we face the unknown. Every encounter strengthens us, teaches us, and proves that humans endure." Dax smiled. "And that's the final lesson, isn't it? Humans don't just survive. They grow stronger, wiser, and more capable with every challenge. That's why the universe should never underestimate us." Ilara nodded. "Exactly. The drifting ship, the entity, even the vast emptiness around us, it's all a reminder. Fear is natural, danger is real, but human courage, intelligence, and determination are stronger. That's the story we carry forward." The crew spent a final hour in quiet reflection, watching the entity pulse within containment, reviewing logs and considering what the future might hold. The black box had told a story, but humanity had written the next chapter, one of courage, intelligence, and success against the unknown. Finally, Ilara addressed the crew. "We'll report to headquarters, documenting everything: the drifting ship, the entity, our methods, and most importantly, the lessons learned. Humans are not just survivors. We are thinkers, problem solvers, and innovators. And that is how we will always face the unknown, together, with courage and intelligence." Ryan glanced at the stars outside the viewport. "It's strange how one ship, drifting silently, could teach us so much. It seemed normal, but it carried a story of fear, bravery, and survival. And now that story is part of us." Sarah smiled softly. "We're the continuation of that story. Humans never stop learning, never stop adapting, and never stop surviving." Dax leaned back, arms crossed, looking at the contained entity. And if it ever tries again, we'll be ready. Humans are clever, humans are brave, humans survive, and no unknown can stop us." Ilara allowed herself a small smile. "Exactly. Humanity endures, and will continue to endure through every challenge, every unknown, and every shadow we encounter in the stars." The patrol of Sentinel-9 that had begun as routine had ended as a testament to human courage, ingenuity, and persistence. The drifting ship's black box had told a story of fear and struggle, but humanity had taken that story, learned from it, and transformed it into triumph. Outside, the stars shone silently, endless and indifferent. But inside the ship, humans had proven once again that courage, intelligence, and determination could light the darkness, overcome the unknown, and turn fear into victory. Commander Ilara Voss looked out into the void, a quiet confidence in her eyes. "We will continue to explore, to protect, and to survive. Humans endure, humans adapt, and humans prevail. That is our story. And that story will continue, for as long as the stars shine and humanity reaches for them." And somewhere in the vast emptiness, the contained entity pulsed faintly, a reminder of the unknown. But humanity's light shone brighter, a symbol of intelligence, courage, and the unyielding spirit that ensured humans would face the unknown and always prevail.